Hello again, Richard here. This is part 2 of the DCC installation and detailing of my LGB 2071D. Part 1, which is also on YouTube, is the first phase of the planning, disassembly, conversion of the motor block to 4-wire and a little bit of the lighting and wiring. And this section is the continuation of the putting things in, the speakers, the chimney, the ballast, decoder, the servos, and some of the issues and finishing off problems. So let's get stuck in. Now today the postman's brought some little presents which I've been waiting for. Having looked inside the motor and knowing what space there is, I was able to order the parts I need. So now here is the smoke generator unit and the little circuit board that comes with it, nicely wrapped up, and a little wiring harness. So there's 6 wires going to the smoke generator, the temperature and the fan and the fan speed and so on. So I'll have to check the instructions, and hopefully that'll tell us about how that works. I'll also have to work out how to mount that inside the boiler and keep it upright and steady, and make sure when I pour the smoke fluid in it doesn't come out all over the inside of the tank there. In the next box we've got the decoder. So this is the ESU Lock Sound L decoder. So it's in between the normal HO sizes and the G scale. So it's really intended for O gauge, but for a small G scale it's fine. Here's the decoder itself. And quite a neat looking unit. That's got 2 large capacitors on there. I think that's what those green bits are, and they're that's the onboard power pack, so I don't need a separate keep alive because it's built in to this loco. And with the ESU you're limited to about 4 seconds of battery power or capacitor power, so that's enough for that. Now this one also comes with the this board which enables the soldering. So you've got all those pins there for all the functions and the outputs, the servos and so forth. So this, to make the soldering easier, this piece is supplied which goes on, and then all the pins, all the solder pads are there. So you've got the 8 functions including servo functions. There's the 4 speaker outputs, plus the track power and the lights, and also the various grounds and functions for the smoke. So it's all there, but it's not small and you have to be very careful of it. These red and black wires are for the motor and the track, and they're supplied already soldered on. You will have to keep track of which is left and right, I suppose. Although it doesn't really matter for DCC. Alright, that's the decoder. I've also got a box of stuff from Chimney. There's the set of couplings to put the coupling on the front. So it's got some spares and springs and so forth. So it should be everything that's possibly available, and I just have to make that fit. That's the new front chimney. Front headlight, I mean.
White insert and a lens, and a square hole at the back to go on the chimney. Won't exactly fit as stock, but we'll see how that goes. New chimney. This is the chimney with no internals, it's just the plastic, so it doesn't have the generator, the LGB smoke unit. I don't need that, but I'll even that as is, it's the LGB for this loco, but doesn't fit in mine, so again a bit more work there. Lamp inserts, they go inside the lamps there if I want to put them in. They're not exactly the right size, I don't think they're available anymore for that one, but maybe I can cut them. The rings to go round the lamps, there's my little handrail that's missing. So I've got one, the other one's on back order. The little dynamo to go on the front, I'll put that on. I won't put that on now, I'll put that on later. I've got two firemen. This guy's an American fireman with loading a log of wood into the firebox. I'm not sure if I'll use that. I've got an RHB fireman. So he's the European fireman or engineer, so maybe he'll do the job. So those are some of the bits we've got that have come in. We've also got, I went to the electronics shop and got a little box for which would be from the hobby shop. It's 60 mil wide by 35, and it's about 28 high. So I think that could make a speaker box for me rather than making one from square one. And so what I've done already is I've cut two holes in the bottom of the box, or the lid of the box, with and fitted these two speakers. So these are the two speakers I bought again. They're Visaton brand, good brand, made in Germany, I understand, and it's quite tiny, so I can fit both of those in this box, and then I seal the box up airtight and run the wires through, and I can run a pair of wires onto each speaker, making sure I keep the positive and negative the same on both, and then I can run that through to the decoder. The decoder has two pairs of speaker outputs, so I'll be able to connect that all up. You don't have to use the same, you can have a small speaker and a large speaker on there, on the two outputs. So that's a little bit of progress. So I'll start fitting stuff and I'll let you know how it goes. Cheers. Okay, well, just a little update where we're up to. So I've progressed the speakers in their box. I found that the little box I had was a little bit too big, just a few millimeters too high to fit in the cab, to fit in the tank, when I left some space underneath, because I don't want the actual speakers touching the deck of the loco. So I cut the top off the box, this top off the box, and then glued a thinner piece of perspex on the top, and it went all around with hot glue, so that should be airtight. And you can see the wires there I've installed, soldered on, positive and negative clearly separated, so that should be alright. Other thing I've done is I've put the little 6-pin plug at the back of the cab through the floor, and that will plug into the plug on the back wall of the cab for those all the lights at the back. So that wire goes through the floor and along under the floor where it's not visible and it's well out of the way. Then it comes up through the floor and under the speakers and along, and then I can connect that to the decoder, and then I've got the wires from the speaker. I probably didn't need wire that thick for the speaker, but anyway, we don't want to attenuate the sound. So that's all looking good, though I did find, as usual, when I ran that wire through there, that's fine. When I put the tank on, there's a piece which comes down at the back of underneath of the firewall, and of course that fouled on that wire, so I had to cut that away on the underneath of the tank piece. So not a big deal, but those things that always happen. Right, now looking at where everything is going to go, and all the weights are going to be cut in half and put down the sides. So, and the smoke generator there, so I thought not quite enough room for the decoder and the soldering board. So I decided the best place to do it was across the front, in the centre. So I cut this piece out. Good for the Dremel. And so the motor's there. The motor sticks up 2.5 mil from the deck, so I could cut that quite down. And I left this piece on there because, as I mentioned, it's got the saddles inside. So I left 3 mil on the sides to hold the two pieces together, so it's still quite firm and held by the original screws. If necessary, I could have put screws through here into the side, but that's sticking up 2 mil anyway, so that's going to fit there. And I'll put a piece of plastic underneath, and then the decoder should go on there. Now, I'm not sure whether to put the pins on top or to leave the board with the pins underneath, and then of course you can solder them on and do the soldering on either side, then put the decoder in when all the soldering's done. Probably that's the way to go. That's about it. So the next thing I'm going to do is look at the light, the front lights, the side lights. I've took the little white plastic inserts that came, and I cut the back off and drilled out the hole to 5 mil, so the 5 mil LED fits in. Then I glued that white piece on in there, and the LED just fits in. So the holes in the back of the lights are about 7 mil, 6 or 7 mil, so they're too big to hold the LEDs in position. So that's there. The next thing then is to fit the chimney, and because they got the front headlight and the chimney all involved together, so that's going to be a bit of an interesting exercise. So looking over there, I've got the chimney. It's got a square thread at the bottom, which if it was this loco doesn't have, and the round piece. So even the round piece doesn't fit down the chimney. So I'm going to have to cut that back or cut it off. I might just cut it off because the smoke generator comes right up to the top of the chimney. The front headlight with its white plastic liner and the lens, clear lens on the top, that's fine, but I'm going to have to work out how much of the chimney to cut off and where the light's going to go, whether it'll keep that mounting. Take that off again. It's quite a decent mounting on the back there, and it doesn't fit anyway, so I can probably cut some of that off and just put a little screw on the front. Now the wire comes out the bottom of that light, so I've got to lead that down into inside the tank there somewhere. So that's the next exercise. Okay, cheers. Hi, well, it's been about 2 or 3 days, well, not full time, but 2 or 3 days work to get to this stage, but I've achieved quite a bit. 2 steps forward and 1 back, but anyway. So, new chimney's on, and the headlight. So, a lot of work fitting the chimney, because the new chimney, or that model, has the square shaft at the top, which this doesn't. So the new chimney is about 9mm diameter, outside diameter, the lower part of the chimney, and the hole in the body here was about 8mm. So I fiddled around, and then realised I did have a 9mm drill bit, so I drilled out the chimney. And then while cutting off the square section, trimming it back to a round profile, and also making room, joining the bottom of the new chimney with the cone-shaped fitting on the existing body. I cut too far and cut right through the whole tube of the chimney underneath, so I had to glue it and strengthen it from the inside with some tubing, but eventually got that on. Now down underneath, it's a lot under there, but the chimney came through there behind the firebox, the smoke box. Trim that to the right length, about level with the top of the tank, so that the smoke generator, which is in there now, that black cylinder, the chimney, the outlet from that was about 6mm, so I drilled a little bit in the inside the new tube, which was 5mm internal, so I drilled it out to 6, and then the chimney fitted in, so I didn't have to have extra tubes and adapters and so forth, so that fitted in. And I put some bits of plastic card, because the smoke generator sits in the underneath the curve of the top of the boiler, looking up. We're upside down at the moment, so there wasn't anywhere to screw it in, the mounting screw, so I put some white card there across on each side, and then I could put a self-tapping screw through that, and that's not very strong, but it holds it steady with the outlet from the smoke unit, which is underneath where we're looking, fixed to the chimney. That's quite steady. There's a little eye or a tab on the front of the smoke generator, which I had to cut off because that would interfere with the back of the smoke box, so I cut that off, but it's still steady enough. So that's there. There's the wires from it, and the electronics for the smoke generator is there. I'll just put a bit of hot glue on that and inside the tank, and then that plug there, the wiring harness will run from there to the decoder. Now what else? I put the chimney on. Again, the back of that chimney had the square hole that had a long bracket behind with a square hole in it to fit the square section of the chimney itself going through, but that was too high and projected forwards a bit too much, so I cut that off and trimmed the back of the bracket, and I've put 2 self-tapping screws in there, just in there. You can hardly see them because I painted them black. They're a bit big, but I'll try and get some smaller ones. So that looks good, and that fits there steady. I had to file the top of the boiler a little bit there, top of the smoke box, but that's clear, doesn't interfere with the door. You can see the globe in there. That's a new 12 volt incandescent, but they give quite a nice natural yellow light when they're lit up. So that's on there. The wires from that come out the bottom, and you can just see them there. I've painted them black. So then I drill a hole into the top of the smoke box. Again, can't see it. There we go. I drill the hole through there, and then I'll show you inside. Because I haven't painted that yet. So that's the wire goes from there and then through the side of the smoke box into the inside where the wires and the resistor are. It needs a resistor because the function output's 18 volts and these are 12 volts. So that's on there, and that looks pretty good. And I've also fitted the little dynamo which sits there on the bracket, the existing bracket on the side of the top of the tank next to the chimney, and fitted the new handrail there, the door, and just tidied up some of the wiring there, and put it through to the 6-pin plug. So that's all finished there through to the 6-pin plug, and then when the decoders will have some wire from that to the plug, and I can take everything off when I need to without having to hold things with the wires. So not too bad effort today. Got looking good, and not much to do now except cut the weights and put them into this. All the weights should go in here now when I cut them all in half, and then we can start wiring up the decoder. So nearly ready. Okay, alright, cheers. Okay, I didn't get anything done yesterday, but I did get something done today. I now have the weights, the ballast weights installed in the body of the tank. So the rearmost weight I cut in half down the middle and put half here and half there. After I'd done that, I found that the weights there had this channel running down. They're not quite flat, they're sort of a flat U shape. So this was running down there, down there, and that of course fouled the speaker box. So I had to cut that section off and glue that in the bottom of the, well, underneath the top of the boiler, one from each side there. Cut that off. And also I had to modify the speaker enclosure. So what I did was, it was mounted with a little tab with a hole in it on each side, which came out there, and that came out quite close to the edge of the frame through that hole. So that was fouling the bottom of the lead in the tank as well. So cut that off and put some little spaces underneath the four corners and just hot glued that onto the deck there. So the mounting tabs are gone from there, and the weights have been cut back at the top, so the speaker fits just in there, and that bit clears the speaker box. The middle weight, that's, you're looking at the side of it now, or the original weight, cut into three pieces. So one third's in there, one third's there, and the other piece I'll show you now. The other piece is mounted there on top of the part of the motor block. So that sits in between the decoder and the smoke generator, and there's just room in between for that. So that fits there. And they're all just hot glued on. So it's pretty easy to fit, and it does mean that you can get them out again as you sometimes need to do, like I've done several times. The front weight is cut in half on that side and half on that side of the space there, just behind the smoke box. And see the smoke generator fits in there still. And I moved the electronics for the smoke generator just further forwards, right up beside the firebox there. It just fits in there with a dab of hot glue underneath. That gives room for the ballast weight, which is across the top of the motor block there. So that, after trial fitting a few times, the speaker box and so on does fit in, and when I put the lid on top of the motor, it does fit. So I've done a little bit more wiring. I've got the plug, the other end of the plug, which will go onto attaches onto this one, which is all the wires from the tank. So I've got the plug there with the coloured leads matching the same colours, and that will go to the decoder. And also the other one, this other 6 wires, different colours, which comes from the cab, the plug at the back of the cab. That's got to connect to the decoder. There's a harness for the smoke box. That's not here, but those wires will go to the decoder. And last but not least, something I haven't shown you before. This is a bit of an experiment, but I have seen it done before. I've bought a little servo. It's called the Tower Pro Micro Servo 9G, or SC90. SC90 is the number, 9G is the weight. So that's a little servo from a model aeroplane or something like that. So I can plan to put that in the floor of the cab. There's a little tiny gear on top of the motor, and you get some fittings to go on there, and then I'll put on top of that, I'll put the driver. The servo will then connect to the decoder. There's a servo output, function output, which can be set to servo, which provides a digital signal to the servo, and when the loco changes direction, the driver should reverse around through 180 degrees, so he's looking out the back or out the front as required. So I have seen it done once before, so we'll see how it works. So there's 3 wires to the servo: brown, orange and yellow. I think brown is negative, orange is positive, and the yellow is the digital pulse. And so I've extended those wires. It comes with a plug, and I've made up it's a female plug, so I've made up a male socket to go in there with some wires, and they can run, where are they, there, that'll run to the decoder as well, and which means that if I need to pull the servo out or disconnect it while I test something, I can do that without old soldering. So that's all in there now, and I think we're about ready to start soldering wires to the decoder. So we'll make a start and see how we go. Cheers. Hi again. Well, it's 2 days since the last snippet of news, so there's been some progress. It's been 2 days, but it's probably only about 4 or 5 hours of work. Anyway, decoder's positioned, and I've got some of the wiring done. So those are the wires from the motor, and they're attached to the wires that were provided on the decoder. The wires from that are going to go to the tank, that plug, which was all the lights in the tank, that goes there, so there's a bit of room for manoeuvring, and then that's all soldered onto the solder pads on the decoder. Well, that's not the decoder, that's the soldering board where you solder all the connections, and then once you've finished, the decoder plugs in those two blocks of pin header. Also in there's the lights from the cab. That's the rear lights, the rear headlight, the cab light, and the power socket at the back of the cab. They're all run through there, and that comes out just there, underneath there, and then they all separate out and run to the different points. Sometimes hard to run them neatly, it's all a bit of a tangle, but that's the way it goes, as long as they don't foul where the decoder's got to go in. You can run them across in between where the decoder goes and the board, which I'm going to run those wires. There's a bit of room across there. There's not a lot of room, sorry, those motor wires can run across there. There's not a lot of room in between because of all the capacitors. Now, I did have one setback which is still unresolved, though I think I'm about solved it. We had the smoke generator in, so now it's out again. So you can now see the top of the smoke generator and the hole where the smoke comes out. So this is the ESU small smoke generator. It's been around 5-6 years now, at least, this one. So the manual for it is labelled 2015, and it comes with those wires come there from the unit, and then there's a PCB with some electronics in it, and there's a jumper there which you can use to set to diesel mode or steam cylinder mode, steam chest mode. You get slightly different smoke. Now that comes then with a plug which goes into that 6-pin socket there, and that's got about a foot of wire on it. And then on the end of that you get this little plug with 4 wires. So the yellow and green just terminate in the wire. The other colours go to this plug, which I understand can be connected to SUSI interface on different boards from other manufacturers. So if you want to use SUSI mode, you use that plug. But for LGB or other decoders, if you don't have that, you cut that off and you're left with the 6 wires. In the ESU V5 decoder, there's a diagram showing 6 wires connecting from this smoke unit to the decoder, and it gives you what each wire does and the colours. So I thought, okay, plug that in there. I've got the 6 wires coming out here, plug them to the decoder. Lovely. Except when you look more closely, you see that the wires here are green, yellow, black, grey, orange, and white. And then the wires coming out here, green, yellow, black, grey, orange and blue. So there's no white wire, but there's a blue wire. And in fact that wire is orange when you look closely, and this wire is red. So I was thinking, what do I do? There's not tables showing what each wire does. There are diagrams in the 2 books. That's the diagram from the V5 manual, which shows my smoke generator and the wires and the decoder, and that matches, except that mine here has this PCB in the middle. Looking at the old smoke generator documentation, 2015, shows the PCB with the wires, blue wire on that side, and on this side white, and those colours actually match. And if I look at the decoder with a magnifying glass, it does match those pins there. The little red and blue wires that go to the motor, fan motor, aren't shown in this picture, but the other coloured wires are there. So I'm thinking that I just cut the PCB off and then connect up, and then I'll have the right colour wires, and I can just install direct to the decoder like that. But I'm waiting to hear back from my retailer to see if that's okay, because if I cut it off, I don't want to have to solder it back on, nor do I want to end up blowing up the decoder or the smoke generator, because it doesn't actually work like that. So we shall see. Of course, with if I cut the plug off, I won't have the plug, and the PCB, I won't have the plug, and the wires just coming straight there, not probably not long enough to reach from the smoke unit to the decoder, maybe just, but very tight. And the way I've got the, if the smoke unit was mounted on the body here, on the deck, the mainframe, that would be alright, but to get a nice fit with the chimney, I'm mounting the smoke generator inside the tank underneath the chimney, and so I need a wire to extend those wires, and to follow my method of having a plug, so you can unplug, I need a little 6-pin plug there, which I haven't got. I've got an 8-pin one, but that's nearly as big as the smoke unit. They are a bit bulky, these, but they fit and they work. So I'm not sure whether to use that or to wait till I can buy a 6-pin one with the current COVID lockdown and I can't visit the electronics shop. So we'll think about that, and meanwhile I'm waiting for confirmation that that's the solution. Cut the PCB off and wire directly, but I'm 99% sure that's the answer. I'll put it on the Facebook group, the ESU installers group, and see if they've got an answer. There's like 1,500 members out there, all busy installing stuff every day, mostly HO, but what they don't know about it is not very much. So that's about where we're up to. I think I'll go and start hacking the front of the logo and look at where the coupling's got to go, and you'll be able to see my efforts on that next time. Okay, all for now. Alright, well, I finally got all the wiring done, 99% anyway, and I've popped the decoder in its position on top of the soldering board, and I've put it on the programming track, and as soon as I did that, the sound started, so something's working. And also I've just started off with a read all sheets to get all the defaults and the retailer set up into my Decoder Pro register. So it's reading all the CV settings off the decoder now, which could take an hour or so. And if you've never seen it before, as it's reading, it jitters up and down the track like that, which is the only way the decoder can tell Decoder Pro any information, because it's a one-way interface. But it's looking good. Well, I've made the call, I've cut the PCB off, and I've soldered all the wires onto a 6-pin plug which I've purchased, and hopefully I don't have to solder it back on, but everything seems to indicate that that's the way to do it. Everything documented. I haven't had any answer from any of the Facebook groups or from ESU yet, but it might come in the next day or so. So I won't plug it in yet, but it's all ready to go. And the 6-pin wire from the decoder the six wires there, same colour code, on the other end of the plug, ready to plug in when I get the OK. And if I don't get it soon, I'll plug it in anyway. Cheers. Couple of things since the last video. I do have the coupler hook on the front now, so it's a new hook, and I've put the skids or skis or snow plows back on the front, whatever you want to call them, but the hook's on the front there now. So to do that, I made quite a big hole in the front in order to get that spring in there, the standard LGB spring with the, which is about 2 centimeters square. So that's in there now and working. So well, seems to be working. I haven't actually tried coupling it up, but that's on there now. And also the 6-pin plug for the smoke ready to go in. Hopefully the wires are correct, but that's all done now too. Another little step forward in the last day or two is I've detailed the 2 figures and mounted them in, the engineer on the right as per European standard and the fireman on the left. That's the Mogul fireman, which had a bowler hat, black bowler hat, but I carved his hat down to make a sort of a cap and giving him a bit of grime on his paint. The other figure was the Rattishaban engineer, so in the blue, pale blue. I've painted him grey and mounted him on the servo that I showed you earlier. So that the grey box, I've painted it grey, is the servo, and he sits up there at about knee level. So it could come down a little bit more. Looks fine in the cab. So when the he progresses, so he's moving up there. Change direction. So that was quite amazingly easy to do. I'd connected the 3 wires to the Servo 3 ports on the decoder, and went into Decoder Pro and set aux 17 to Servo and set the 4 CV values to the midpoint, and the servo was working, and then I just adjusted the speed and adjusted the distance a little bit. The servo's a 180 degree servo, so full motion is 180 degrees, so I cut that back a little bit, but and altered the speed so he's not too fast, and that's it, it's done. So you can just see him now in the cab. It looks quite natural there. So turns around. Looks pretty well. You can see the headlight and the side lights now working, and with the change in direction, headlight goes out and the little red lights come on. And I have turn that down so we get rid of the noise a little bit. Using the ditch light feature linked to the F1, the bell, I now have this effect. So it's just a bit different, a bit of fun. You can alter the speed of that. So interesting. And then the cab light comes on when you're stationary there, you can see. So, turn that off. Turn the F1 off, and the normal front and back, forward and reverse lighting comes back. So it's all done with the functions. So looking good. Nearly finished. I've put the smoke unit in and connected it up, I think as per the wiring, but currently if I've put a little bit of fluid in, but if I turn the smoke unit on with function 4, I get an odd noise. So I've turned it off again. I'm not sure what that is. I'm going to have to get in there and have a look. I presume it's the fan. I'll have to check the voltage. Okay, well, I've filled up the smoke and a bit of a clean on the track, and we're ready to roll. You can just see the puffing of the smoke. The authentic, yeah. It's pretty sunny, so I've got to watch the sun. The power pack doesn't seem to last very long when there's a bit of bad track. It's not going too badly. I'm going to work on the gaps in the track, possibly. After winter, some of the droppers have come detached, I think, so the power's not reliable. Anyway, I think you've seen some of the issues and what can be done, and hopefully it's helped when you come to do yours. Cheers, bye.
I did spend some time cleaning the tracks and tightening up the connections, and everything went well.